effects of COVID-19 all across the world, but we've also seen the best in each other, which has been wonderful to see. So on behalf of our company, I want to thank all of the first responders as well as everyone on the call here today. We thank you for helping to get us through this unprecedented time. As Stone mentioned, my name is Paul. I am the SVP for our Food Safety and Supply Chain Division. I'm going to refer to us just today as FSI, and I'll give you a very brief overview of the family of companies that I work for. I'm very happy to say that. And I also have the pleasure of welcoming Tammy Van Buuren, who's a compliance manager for SQF. She's going to be giving an overview of effective root cause analysis, beyond the 5 whys, and discussing their current position on the remote audit and virtual audit solution. So let's just jump right in here. Perry Johnson was originally founded in 1994 by Perry L. Johnson, and we've really been at the forefront of certification and registration from the very beginning. We achieved ANAB accreditation back in 1995, and then we started expanding into international markets also in 95. And up through 99 and 2000 into markets like Japan, Brazil, Spain, Portugal, Thailand, Latin America, etc. During that time, we also attained UCAS accreditation under the PJR banner, and more recent years, they continued expanding in the UK and China. In 2005, PG&A was founded, and that's our healthcare technology business that specializes in transcription, telemedicine, virtual scribing, medical coding, etc. And then shortly after that, as you can see, is where FSI was born as a result of the demand in the industry for third-party and second-party certification and auditing standards. We're headquartered in Troy, Michigan, but we're really a global company, part of a family of companies actually in the registration, certification, and training space. We have a wide range of services, everything from HACCP to organic, GFSI to gluten-free, cannabis, hemp, social responsibility, and even FDA audits. So if you take a look at, the last 8 years, FSI has really worked with and supported companies in virtually every sector in the industry. Everyone from the retailers to processors, distribution, farms, importers and exports, and many other types of organizations to help them manage their food safety, supply chain, quality, and brand protection requirements. So we're very much committed to providing a real value-added experience for our customers and their suppliers, and we do that through the rigor and consistency that we offer in our approach. We're currently recognized today as the #1 registrar in the Americas by the IAAR, which is the International Association of Accredited Registrars. And as Perry Johnson himself did over 30 years ago, we apply the principles of quality management, collaboration, organizational excellence in all of our activities, whether that be office or field, and we follow the standards that are required by the international standards organizations, accreditation bodies, and scheme owners like SQF, of course, and any other interested parties. So looking at our services here, as the slide points out, certification industry has been deemed an essential service. Why have they been? Because if you look at food safety certification, it's based on the results of tests, inspections, and audits, and it gives confidence to you and me as the consumer that the organization's products and services or their system is being thoroughly evaluated against accepted national and international standards by a competent third party. So today, though, we've seen a great deal of change, and it's not business as usual, far from it. We have been required to implement, as you have, many changes in our business to ensure that we continue to provide not only quality service, but maintaining safety and doing our part to reduce the global impacts of COVID. We don't take this lightly as an organization and are using every recommended precaution, as I'm sure you are. We actively promote things like social distancing and follow recommendations of the FDA, the CDC, and many others. In today's market, it's really critical. With the landscape changing every single day, it's very dynamic. Trends are shifting, expectations are changing. Because of this, we have defined our services into really 4 key areas. So we have auditing and certification to third-party accredited standards like SQF, the other GFSI schemes, as well as ISO standards. Second-party auditing, which is the standards that we own and audit to. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We do a lot of customer-specific supply chain work. So if you are looking to try and manage, the risk and mitigate the risk within your supply chain, we can certainly help you there as well. Now, if you take a look at the the types of programs that we have, this is a high-level snapshot. There's currently about 30 or 35 programs that we support today. And as we all know, there's many different types of audits in the industry. Some are accredited, some are not. Some are client-specific, some are government-regulated, others are retailer-mandated. As previously mentioned, we do work with almost every other type of company in the industry. And at FSI, we really categorize these into 5 main channels. The first party, as I mentioned, are customer specific or scheme owner specific. Usually companies will, because of our technical knowledge, location of auditors, language requirements, minimizing travel costs, these are all typical reasons that you'll find our customers use us to conduct their supply chain audits. Second party, very similar to first party, but it's FSI, in fact, who owns and have developed the schemes. So their standards like good manufacturing, good distribution, good packaging, HACCP, cannabis and hemp, which we're extremely excited to announce that about 3 weeks ago, we were recognized as the only accreditation body or the only certification body in the world who has achieved accreditation from ANAB to our cannabis and hemp standards. So that's very, very exciting. We also have, many other exciting things we're working on, such as our partnership and relationships with the GRMA, which is the Global Retailers Manufacturers Alliance. They have some wonderful standards and schemes there for GMP-based schemes for all of your non-food vendors. We can talk more about that later. Also, then finally, we're recognized as an accreditation body to perform various government audits such as FSMA, FSBP, or the BQIP program, which is the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program. Moving on, this slide here talks about the sample of the core management system standards that really started it all. We conduct accredited audits to many different types of organizations that are focused on quality, environmental, aerospace, many other areas as well. And if you think about it, these standards here in many cases are 40+ years old and have been around for a very long time. You see them integrated with each other on almost on a regular basis. It becomes the norm and it's industry standard today. So instead of somebody having just a quality program or just an environmental, we'll be going and auditing an integrated management system for QH&S, quality, environmental, and health and safety. We don't see that today on the food side yet. FSSC has done a little bit of this with 9001 in their FSSC standard. Other schemes like SQF, they have a lot of additional standards that we can look to use as a bolt-on or an add-on. We have retailer addendums as well. So I don't believe that the food world is completely integrated yet, but at some point in the near future, I believe we're going to get there. I think that's just the natural evolution of where this is going to take us. Now, we have a long-standing relationship with many of the organizations listed here, various accreditation bodies and scheme owners. This gives our customers assurance that the family of companies operate under the rules of accreditation. That helps to regulate us, maintain, and follow a high quality of work. On many occasions, like we're doing today, I think since March, we've done about 13 webinars, but we partner with groups like SQF to ensure we're giving you the most up-to-date information. And then we pass that along to our customers like we're doing today and all month actually, and next month as well. So typically where we come and audit you as a CB, the accreditation bodies and scheme owners come and audit us. It's a large investment every year for FSI as well as any other certification body, but it's one that we make because it gives customers confidence around the world that they're partnering with trusted certification bodies. So just quickly, I want to try and save as much time as I can here for Tammy, but to address the pandemic, we have implemented global processes and procedures when it comes to protecting our clients, our staff, communities. Many of the clients that we work with contact us on a regular basis, and they indicate a variety of situations that could impact their ability to host a successful audit. Their operations are reduced or completely down. no visitor policies, restriction on access to certain locations while others are still accessible. These are all reasons that we work with our clients when we're talking about how we can support them because of COVID. GFSI, as you know, Tammy will speak about this, they have their temporary audit measures due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is allowing for the 6-month extension of your certified facility. We, as the CB, have to perform a risk assessment, as does any certification body. And if the risk is low, then we would issue you and extend the certificate. Now, I believe that the scheme owners, GFSI and the scheme owners are going to have to continue to keep looking at this and monitoring this, because I think that even once we do get on the other end of this, it's going to be a very different world for all of us. So we need to be prepared and be able to address this for our clients so that they can maintain their certification. So over the last several months, we've had many inquiries from our clients. Really, you want to make sure that you have a partner that understands the situation, and first priority is to protect our customers. So on top of the basics like staying at home if they're sick, or sanitizing their cars, laptops, their hands, and mobile devices, and we have developed as well clear policies for all employees. So we're doing everything we can as a CB to make sure that we are protecting you, our customers. We require that all of our auditors are self-monitoring on a daily basis as well, and if they believe that they've been in contact with anyone that may have been infected or presumed to have been infected, then they're required to self-isolate. But at the end of the day, even if we follow all of the recommendations by the groups like the CDC and the FDA and our own policies, it still doesn't prevent us from this reaching our families. But we're committed to doing everything that we possibly can to stop the spread. And then we currently use live streaming technology such as Microsoft Teams and GoToMeeting and Webinar and Zoom. We have virtual software programs that we use and audit packs, if you will, that we would send to the site in advance to conduct these audits. So if and when GFSI is ready to move forward with conducting virtual or remote audits, we as a CB are ready. Many of the standards that we're working with today, we've probably done over 400 virtual and remote audits, and they've all been very successful. So we look forward to discussing that further with you, should you have any other questions on that. I guess just to kind of wrap this up today and then pass it back over to Stone. Again, we have over 30 years of experience. We're recognized by the IAAR as the #1 CB in the Americas. I do believe that we would bring a significant value, greater transparency, and even cost effectiveness to your business, as well as protecting your brand. We constantly are publishing update and content on our websites and avenues like this. We work closely with our clients to try and meet your needs and expectations. And just finally here, we're in a time of great change. Everybody knows that. This all just started a couple of months ago. We're only at the beginning though, and we all, I think, need to start building our plans for recovery post-COVID. And this includes a pivot to your business models, your operations, supplier policies, maybe even offboarding strategies, different technologies you're using, how you're going to remobilize your workforce. It really is a time of monumental change in our industry, but now is the time that we need to execute and lay out our plans to give not only our customers and suppliers, but your stakeholders and your employees the confidence that we're all back in control. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to pass this back over to Stone. Hi, Stone.
Thank you, Paul.
You okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you, Paul. So before we introduce our next speaker, we would like to share another polling question. Just to reiterate, our polling questions are important because it helps guide the conversation for the speakers for the session, but it also allows us to improve for further webinars. So thank you in advance for participating, and we'll share the results momentarily.
You just got to post the question.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the question is, does your organization specify what root cause analysis or problem-solving tool you must use?
I think based on these results, this will be great information for Tammy moving forward as well.
Mm-hmm. So we have about 50% participation so far. Thinking about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, close. All right. So those are the results. Pretty good mix. All right. Hide. So. Oops. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Tammy Van Buuren from SQFI. Tammy Van Buuren has been Manager of Compliance for SQFI since November of 2019. Her most recent prior positions were as Quality Manager and SQF Practitioner for Treehouse Foods and D&W FineTech. Tammy has almost 30 years of experience in quality control in the automotive and food industries. In her spare time, she teaches classes that prepare people to take ASQ certified classes as quality engineers and technicians. And with that, I'll hand it over to Tammy.
All right, thank you very much. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank Perry Johnson for having me on today. And thank you, Stone. Thank you, Paul, for helping get all this going and helping get me set up in this webinar. This is my first as the compliance manager with SQFI, so I'm very excited to be here and very excited to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is root cause analysis. And there we go. So the polling question was designed to kind of give me an idea of where everyone's at in their root cause analysis journey. Too many times we find where corporate offices or companies want to dictate how to perform root cause analysis. And there are so many great opportunities out there to use a variety of tools to get to that root cause and to resolve the problems that you see. So today I am hoping to introduce you to some that maybe you've never seen before and give you some new tools for your toolbox. I'm a very technical person, so I always start with the code and see what the code has to say on certain topics. So if you ever call into SQFI and you have a question to pose to me, I will always refer you back to the code so that you know where that I get my answer from, so that in the future you can reference back to the specific area. So corrective and preventative action is addressed in 2.5.3.1 in both the Food Safety Code and the Quality Code. They are very similar in words, but not exactly the same. But if you kind of sum those up, you get to what it says in both of those cases is that you shall have methods, and they shall include identification of the root cause and resolution of non-compliance. And if you think about anything around problem solving, that's really what you're attempting to do, is identify that root cause and then resolve the non-compliance. And this is applicable to issues in manufacturing, it's applicable to internal audits, it's applicable to external audit non-conformances. So regardless of what your problem is, you should be able to use some type of method and process to get to the root cause there. But what it doesn't say is no specific tool or process identified or mandated. So in the code, we don't say you have to use this or you have to use that tool. You have to use fishbone diagram or you have to use 5Y, because we recognize at SQFI that there's a variety of tools out there and not every tool fits every single situation. So we want you to be able to develop a process that will allow you the freedom to most effectively solve your problems. Okay, so if you think about it, your typical problem-solving process you know, it may have, I've got a basic one here that's got 6 steps. You might be familiar with one called the 8D or the 7D. Those are exactly the same, except for the 8th D is congratulate the team. So some people use an 8D, some a 7, some may have just a basic problem-solving process. Mine here has 6 steps. You might be more familiar with the DMAIC process, which is aligned with 6 Sigma. So define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And then over here on the right, I've got my toolbox, and the ones I've got highlighted in pink there are typically ones that you might find that you're more familiar with and that you might use more often. Brainstorming, fishbone, 5Y, flowcharts, Pareto charts are all common ones. Today we're going to look at 4 that maybe are not as common. The is, not matrix, 6 thinking hats, force field analysis, and trees. So first let's look at the is, not matrix. So have you ever been on information overload? So customer calls, says I've got a problem and here's what's wrong. And then all of a sudden you've got all this information, you've got data that you've collected, you've got all these studies maybe that you've done, and so you just have all this information, shipping records and details and quantities, and you produce this many and you ship this many, and so you have all this information overload, and sometimes that kind of clouds the problem, and you need to be able to determine exactly what the problem is in order to get to the root cause. And an is not matrix will help you do that. So I've got 5 simple questions here, and it's in matrix format. So you would ask each of those 5 questions, and you would tell what it is and what it's not, and the distinctions between the two. And I have a great example, and it's actually a real life example that I had as a quality manager previously. So we're going to walk through that so that you can see exactly how to use the tool. And first, hang on here. There we go. All right, so the problem, I had a customer call and say, I used to, in a former life, used to make crackers. And so we would package crackers in a film, and the individual retail unit was sold as a bag of crackers. So there was no box around the outside of it. It was just a bag of crackers. It had a seam on each end that was sealed, and it had a seam in the middle, side seam, fin seal. You might recognize those terms. So the customer called, it was a large retail customer, called and said, every time I open cases of product in the store, I find bags that have busted open and the crackers are all in the bottom of the case. We had 4 baggers, A, B, C, and D. We were very genius in naming our baggers, and each bag would have the bagger that had produced that product identified on it. And so their response was from the customer is that all the bags that are busted have either a C or a D printed on them. So we immediately tried to do some containment, pulled product that we had in the warehouse, looked in cases, found 0 busted bags. So we were a little bit confused because they led us to believe it was a very significant problem. It had happened on several shipments in a row. They didn't call on the first couple because they just kind of thought it would go away. So they were seeing a significant issue here. So a traditional root cause analysis would lead you to say, oh, there's a problem with baggers C and D. Let's go fix those. And so we did struggle with that for a few days, trying to fix baggers C and D. When we couldn't come to a conclusion on what the root cause was in baggers C and D, we decided to take a look back and kind of step back from it and look at the bigger picture. And we used an is not matrix to determine and help us to clarify the problem, which allowed us to find the root cause. So, so what happens, what occurs, what objects are affected? So it was the inseams that were busting out. We didn't have any where the side seam or the fin seam was busted. It was always the ends. Where does the problem occur? We've already identified that was baggers C and D, and not on baggers A and B. We didn't have a single complaint against those two baggers. When does the problem occur? Now, this was the critical question. So we would package these bags of crackers two different ways. We had one that went into a display case that the retailer would just take the top off and sit in the store. And it would have a display on it for some kind of special they were running. Those were cased 36 bags to a case. A normal case would only hold 12 bags. And so there was a distinct distinction there. The extent of the problem, 3 to 12 bags in a case, but it was not every case. So some cases had no issues, and then we had some cases that had, you know, a third of the bags busted. And then who was involved? It was all shifts. It was random. There was no specific day or time involved. So our distinctions there on the right, 36 bags to a case versus 12 in a normal case. And what we found was that 95% of all of our display cases are produced on baggers C and D. So that led us to believe that the root cause was not in the baggers, as we had initially believed, but it had something to do with the displays. And so through our root cause analysis, we found that the added weight of the extra 24 bags, when you put it into a case and you put those cases onto a pallet and you put those pallets onto a truck and it drives cross country, bouncing up and down, the added weight of those extra 24 bags would bust the 12 bags in the bottom of the case. So using this is not matrix, we were able to determine that the issue was not with the bagger or with the seals, but it was with the way that we were packaging it, and then we were able to identify some corrective action that would reduce it. So, so again, not the traditional problem-solving method, and using traditional methods, we had kind of come to a standpoint to where we couldn't solve the problem. So is not matrix, very simple to use. 5 questions can be done in just a few minutes, but it also, it's able to give you those distinctions that you may have missed in your traditional problem solving. So that's the is not matrix. Okay, trees, theory of inventive problem solving. Now this may be one you have not heard of before, and this is actually one of my favorite tools that I came across in my journey in quality control. It was developed by a Mr. Altschuler in Russia. He was an inventor and science fiction author, and he started working on this theory back in the 1940s. So it's been around, quite a long time. And Mr. Altschuler worked in a patent office, and he day after day was looking at all these patents. And what he decided was that what a patent truly is a solution to a problem. Somebody had an issue or a problem, and they developed something, they created something that would solve that problem, and then they would patent it. So looking through over 200,000 patents over the course of a few years, he was able to identify about 40,000 of those patents dealt with inventive problems. And so he believed in the concept that there are no new problems. 90% of today's problems have already been solved if we just look back and have the luxury of screening patents as he did. But since we don't have the time to look through 200,000 patents, he kind of summarized some things for us, which is very helpful. So I've included here, and as a reminder, you will get these slides. This is being recorded, so you will be able to look back on this. But those are two websites that I use when I'm using trees, and they are very, very helpful. The very first one there has a matrix and includes 39 different unique problems. And then you use that matrix to identify a number of inventive principles. And then the second link there will take you to a very nice list of inventive principles. If you go on the web and you just Google trees, you're going to get lots of information. There are tons of websites and books and information about the theory of inventive problem solving. These are my two favorites, and that I found that are easy to use and that you can download the matrix and the inventive principles list. So I've got an example for that as well, so you can see. So let's say, for example, we want to improve productivity. Now, we're all quality professionals, so, you know, I'm sure we've had to deal with this many times. Our production folks say we need to produce more. So that's the feature that they want to improve. Well, from a quality perspective, we want to ensure that other things don't get worse, okay? And so the worsening feature here, and I just picked one of the 39, there are 39 of them. I picked one, reliability. As a quality person, I'm interested in making sure that our reliability doesn't suffer because we've increased our productivity. So using the matrix that you'll find at that first link, you will come up with 4 inventive principles, and they're numbered 1 through 40. So the 4 inventive principles that say if you're trying to improve productivity, but you don't want to make reliability suffer, look at 1, 10, 35, and 38. So I poured through those 4 inventive principles, and I came up with some things. Number 1, a possible solution was raise the temperature. So if you think about, and again, this one stood out to me because my background's in bakery. So if my production people wanted to make my line go faster through the oven, then what's one of the ways that I could ensure that reliability doesn't decrease? Raising the temperature of the oven might do it. That's a possible solution. Another possible one that I picked out was prearrange or stage objects coming into the process. So having things in the same place at the same time. So having them designated, staging them. So if you're doing changeovers and things, that they're already there, ready to use. You don't have to stop the line and then go collect things so that you can change over. So staging objects coming into the process. And then the third is quick disconnects. So you will see that you know, being able to change things out using a quick disconnect will also make the line perform at a higher reliability or a consistent reliability. Okay, and so that is trees. And again, if you're a very technical person like I am, you will enjoy that one. And I actually just like taking that list of 40 inventive principles, and I just like going through there to see what kind of solutions have been given to problems that have been going on for a century. So so definitely check that one out, especially if you're a technical or engineering type person, as I am. Okay, and I'm going to give it back to Stone to do our next polling question.
All right, thank you, Tammy. And once again, a huge thank you to our speakers, Tammy and Paul, for their wonderful presentations. And just to learn more about our audience and improve these webinars going forward, we're going to wrap this segment up with another poll. Let me pull it up here. All right. So our third question is, what was updated in your food safety system to reflect responses to the pandemic? I'll wait for maybe 15 more seconds. All right, I'm gonna close that. So here are the results of that. It seems like 76% have a combination of a visitor policy, some hazard analysis, and some crisis management. Hide that. All right. Then for this, is this back to Tammy?
It was back to me.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to jump from a tool that is very technical in nature, like trees, to something that could not be less technical than any other tool. 6 thinking hats. When I first started doing root cause analysis, and again, it's been several years, something like this would not have appealed to me at all, just because I am a highly technical person. But the more that I have used this and had experience with these types of tools, you know, it really does have its place. And if you think about your typical meetings, especially root cause corrective action meetings, you will see how you sometimes use 6 thinking hats without even really realizing you're using 6 thinking hats. So the idea behind this tool is that you have 6 different colors of hats that people wear. And everybody will fall into one of those naturally. Sometimes they may fall into more than one, or you can assign people to be a particular color hat. And I'm going to go over what those 6 hats are. So the first hat there is the blue hat. That's what they call the process hat. They think about things, they organize things, they're planning. So, you know, if you think about it, you know, having that type of person there, the one that organizes things, that lays things out for people so you can see, planning, that's an important part of the process. So that person is very important. Then you have the white hat. They're the facts person, okay? They're all about information, data. You know, a lot of times they're neutral, and they're just all about presenting the information. What do I know? What do I need to find out? How do I get it? And they will pour over data and information. They can quote facts to you, and that's the white hat. And I tend to be a white hat. I like data, I like information. The certification bodies will tell you that I do pour over a lot of data, and I will give them facts and information. So I tend to be a natural white hat. And then you have your red hat. That person goes off of gut feelings and hunches, and they're very passionate about what they do. And you know, they will, if you make a good argument to a red hat, they'll jump from one side of an issue to another, but they will defend whatever side of the issue that they're on, okay? And so the red hat, very passionate. You have your green hat. Those are the people that are full of ideas. They're very creative. They offer alternatives. They're the person you want in a brainstorming session for sure, because they'll have lots of ideas and they will build off of ideas or solutions that other people come up with. So a green hat is very good to have in your problem-solving process. And these hats work for both when you're coming up with root causes, as well as when you're coming up with solutions too. And many of the tools that I'm going over today could be used in different parts of the root cause analysis process. It doesn't always have to be used on the front end or on the back end. It could be a combination. So green hat, again, very important. And then we come to our yellow and black hats, okay? So they're polar opposites. The yellow hat, always positive, think of sunshine, always thinking about the glass being half full. And so they will always very logically decide to support an issue, and they will be very positive about it, or support a solution, and they will look at all the ways that a certain solution will work and how we can make it work. The black hat, and we may know some of those people, right? Those people that they might be difficult sometimes, but they're the people, and again, very important to have the black hat, because they're the people that will figure out why something won't work. So we might have a great solution that everybody in the room thinks is just the perfect solution to a problem, and the black hat will find the reason why it won't work. They'll find why we need to do something different. They will, again, use logical reasoning to figure out what the risks are. So we need the black hat, okay? They might be difficult sometimes, but we need the black hat. So again, as I mentioned, you could use this tool in one of two ways. You could certainly assign a problem-solving team, and everybody gets a different color hat, and they would each play their part. Or when you're putting together a problem-solving team, why not think about your management staff or your team members out on the production floor? You know, which ones fall into each of these categories naturally, and try to get a nice cross-functional team put together that would represent each of these 6 hats. And you will get some very good debates, and you will get a very good, solid root cause analysis process completed, and you will get some great solutions. So I could envision using this one of 2 ways, because I think we all naturally tend to fall in one or more of these hats. So like I said, I tend to be a white hat. I also tend to be a yellow hat, so I'm usually pretty positive. But there have been times as a food safety manager that I've had to put that black hat on and say, oh, no, that will not work. So yeah, so look at it from a couple different perspectives, but definitely you could use this to put together a nice cross-functional problem-solving team. And then the 4th tool I want to talk to you today is force field analysis. So, you know, sometimes we have situations where we're trying to solve a problem where we have people who are a little bit resistant to that. Well, we've always done it this way. We've tried that before. That won't work. So you use force field analysis to determine if your company is open to solving that problem, if they're open to making changes. And I brought an example of that one as well. First, though, I want to talk to you about how force field analysis works as far as an equation goes. So E equals Q times A. And I'm a very technical, mathematical person, so I appreciate formulas. So E is equal to the effectiveness or the efficiency of the change. Q is the quality, and A is the acceptance level. So if you think about each one of those separately, let's talk about the quality of the change. So you might have a great idea, a great solution to a problem, and it may be fantastic. The quality of the change is high. But if the people that have to support it have a very low acceptance of it, then the effectiveness of the change will be low, no matter how great of a change it is. If people aren't open to making the change and the acceptance level is low, then the effectiveness will be low. So just keep that in mind as you are going through your problem-solving process. All right, so here's my example, and I did this one because edition 9, it's coming. It will be here very soon. You will be seeing more information released on it in the near future, and I know everybody's excited about that. So I use the example of implementing SQF code changes. You know, we sometimes have cultures where people just are resistant to any change at all. So we need to look at the forces for making a change and compare them to the forces against. And so there may be some things that we need to do to prepare our facilities for making changes. And again, I'm using implementing SQF code changes as our problem today because it's coming. Edition 9 will be here soon. So, for example, forces for continuous improvement. So the changes, you know, are going to make us better, going to make a safer food supply, as I have listed there at the bottom. It could even open up our business to new opportunities. So there may be new business out there that we receive because we are implementing some of these code changes. However, there are always forces working against us. Some changes might be costly. You know, we may need to redo something, or, you know, there might be a capital project that we want to put in place to help us. And so, you know, there could be some costly things. It may mean additional work. So maybe there's more testing that has to be done or more monitoring of processes. So, you know, there may be more work. And then, you know, with any kind of change, there comes training. So, you know, and especially now when we're responding to a pandemic and we're all kind of short on time and having to do a lot of things that we wouldn't normally do when there's not an extraordinary event going on. Finding time for training could be a challenge, and you know, people may not want to go sit in a conference room and look at a screen and listen to someone talk about changes that are going to impact the way they do their jobs. So you would brainstorm those forces for, brainstorm the forces against, assess the strength of each, and determine if you need to do something ahead of the change to get people on board with it. So, you know, a lot of times people are resistant to change just because they don't know. They don't know how it's going to impact them. So, you know, if you start now letting people know that edition 9, it's coming. So, you know, and then when it gets released for public comment and you get your first look at it, then, you know, you can kind of give people an idea. Okay, we may have to demonstrate a sense of food safety culture, and you start getting people involved in the process early, and that will help to reduce some of those forces against if people understand the change. So again, you may need to do some mitigation prior to the change, because no matter how great the change is, again, if the acceptance level is low, then it may not go exactly the way you planned. So again, making sure that that you know that your acceptance level is high. So that's force field analysis, and that is our tools for today. So as promised, one of the things that Perry Johnson and Paul had asked us to talk about, or asked me to talk about today, was in light of the pandemic and edition 9 changes that are coming, where are we going for the future? And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here just going over that. So preparing for the future. So how are we going to get back on track with audits after we have, as Paul mentioned earlier, approved quite a few extensions? And some of the things that SQFI is helping to do and GFSI is looking at as well is credentialing more auditors. So right now, we always have room for more auditors. I'm sure Perry Johnson would love to talk to you all about how you can get on board with being a SQFI auditor. And we're going to be looking to credentialing more auditors, and there are some things that we've done around that to help make it easier. And I'm not going to say easier as in it's easier to be an auditor, but easier to get you credentialed, okay? So removing the GFSI knowledge exam requirement, that's a done deal. So for those of you that are listening today that were keeping your fingers crossed that the knowledge exam going away, it's gone. So, so that has been removed. We're going to look at our witness audit requirements very closely, and there will be some modifications to the number of witness audits or the number of how those are completed. So we'll be looking at that program as well. And then we've already started this. We had a very successful virtual instructor training program to get some additional auditors trained. And so Christy with SQFI, she's been working very hard to get some virtual instructor-led classes going. And the very first one, she and Leanne led, and it was extremely successful. So we are looking at converting some more instructor training to a virtual instructor training. And so there'll be more information coming out in the future on that. Modifying the audit process, and I know a lot of you all are really interested in this part of it. So let me quickly touch on this. So in order to assist auditors and certification bodies with the backlog of audits that will need to be performed once the country, well, the world is opened back up and allowing auditors to get into a lot of the sites, we are going to look at the audit report very closely and minimize sectional summaries. And this was one of the goals we had going into edition 9 as well. So you will see once edition 9 comes out that there will be less sectional summaries to complete. But we will also look at doing that for edition 8.1 as we're trying to play catch up at the end of the year here. Allowing auditors more consecutive audits. So currently the requirement was that an auditor cannot audit a site for more than 3 consecutive cycles, and we have already lifted that requirement temporarily, at least during the pandemic here. So as long as the site is okay with getting an auditor back a 4th time, we are permitting that to happen for 2020. So hopefully that will also help to alleviate some of the backlog. We have waived the unannounced audit requirement for the next few months. So as of right now, it's pushed out to August 1st. That could change. We may extend it if we're, you know, still a month from now in a situation where we have a lot of extensions going on, but we're taking that a month at a time and looking at that. So what we said is sites who were mandatory to have their unannounced audit this year, they were in the 3rd year of their audit cycle, they may choose to have that as an announced audit this year, and then it would be a mandatory unannounced audit for 2021. And that has already happened as well. And then here we are, remote technology. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth for remote technology. Okay, remote audits. And we call it on this slide remote audits, but a better term would be using technology to complete an audit. Information communication technology. So if you think about it, we already do that with SQF initial certification. So your desk audit typically will be done remotely using you know, different types of technology. And so we also use that as well, closing out non-conformances. We use digital pictures, you may submit a video. So there's lots of uses of technology already going on. So, so that's not anything brand new to us. You know, we do have some experience with that. GFSI will actually define the requirements for SQF. And here's just a few highlights of what we're hearing so far. We will follow the IAF guidelines on information communication technology. And conducting remote auditing activities, and so we'll follow those. No audit will be permitted to be 100% remote. There will be a minimum amount of time that must be spent on site, and they'll be setting guidelines around that. They will define when remote audits can be used or where they can be applied. They will also set, GFSI will set the time frame between the remote audit and the on-site. So if I do the remote audit today, then I will have a certain number of days to go into the site and complete the on-site portion. And so they'll be setting that maximum time frame. And then, of course, training and oversight of auditors conducting remote audits. So those are some things that have to get worked out. I just wanted to assure you all that SQF, our policy is in progress. We've been working on it because we knew this was coming down the pipeline. So we've been working on it for a few weeks now. And just again, some things we will include the IAF documents as a part of our policy as well. It'll be applied to all audit types. So whether it's a recertification audit or a surveillance audit, we will apply that. And then timing between on-site and remote, again, will be in line with whatever GFSI decides. And then the flow, we will have a flow chart of activities that you'll be able to follow, and it'll, determine feasibility be the first step, because with using remote technology, it can be challenging sometimes depending on, where you're located as far as internet access and things like that. So you'll have to determine feasibility, plan and schedule the audit, conduct the audit, and then close it out, which are all parts of our normal process already. So my last couple of slides here. Okay. If you need information on coronavirus, looking for some resources, you can go to our SQF page, and there is a link to lots of information on coronavirus. We have SQF's policies and procedures there. You can get a link to GFSI's policy on COVID-19. You can get up to date on the latest news there. So check that out if you haven't. Lots of good information. And then the last one here, we are moving forward with planning our SQF conference in October. There will be lots of good information there. Looking back, facing forward is the theme. We will be announcing quality awards, achievement awards there. We are going to celebrate 25 years that SQF has been around. You will get lots of opportunities to learn about the changes to Edition 9. And then also all of the challenges that we have faced this year in the food industry and going forward, how we can address those. So, you can sign up to get updates and also nominate your favorite practitioner or auditor. So again, thank Perry Johnson for having me here. Thank you, Stone. Thank you, Paul. And I appreciate getting the opportunity to speak on one of my favorite topics. So back to you, Stone.
Thank you, Tammy. And once again, huge thank you to our speakers, Tammy and Paul, for the wonderful presentation. For our final polling question, we're asking, what will your company's priorities be moving forward as the market returns to normal business practices? Once again, to reiterate, these help us improve these webinars going forward. So thank you in advance for participating. So just open up that poll.
Just wanted to say, Tammy, again, thank you. If we do move forward with the conference in October, I'm sure I'm speaking for many of us when I say we're very much looking forward to getting out of the house.
Me too. And what better way to do that but Orlando in October?
No kidding, exactly. Yeah.
All right, 5 more seconds, and then I'll wrap the poll up. All right, close. Just for a quick sec, showing the poll results. Yeah, thank you very much for participating.
That's great. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much, Stone. Just quickly here, before we get into some Q&A, I just want to give you an update on a couple of the upcoming webinars that we have. Beginning in a few weeks, we're going to be doing a webinar with the group GRMA that I mentioned a little bit earlier. We're going to be talking all about their summit. They're launching a new webinar partner series as well. That's going to be coming up, so it'll be a virtual summit. We've signed a MOU with the GRMA as it relates to our cannabis and hemp, so we'll be talking about that and the partnership that we have with them. So we're really looking forward to having a good solid webinar with GRMA and their board of directors. Then we're going to be talking a little bit more with our close friend and colleague, Jennifer Crandall from Safe Food en Route. We'll be talking about building out a supplier program and what a good program looks like. And we're going to be following that by another close contact that I work with. His name is Richard Ingraro, and he's the president of Accordia. We do global supply chain, social responsibility, social accountability, you know, SMETA and SA8000, as well as CT patent border security audits with them. So we're going to be talking about what the new normal looks like with respect to social compliance. So that's it. So I think we just go to our Q&A session now, and maybe flip it over to our next slide here. There, Stone, all yours.
Mm-hmm. All right. So thank you, Paul. Here we have some contact information. And with that, we'd like to open up the floor to any questions that y'all have. So once again, in the questions window, you can submit questions. And right now, we're going to be answering them. So with the first question, I believe Tammy already answered this in the text, but just so everyone can hear, the question says, should you still do root cause analysis if the cause is/appears obvious?
Yeah, so I like to at least address each problem as it's presented. So sometimes it means getting a team together, even if it is obvious, what we think is obvious, and at least talking through the problem, and then determining if we need to move forward with a full-blown root cause analysis process, or if it's something that we can simply identify and correct, and then you know, put in some preventative measures. So as a quality manager, I had a standing meeting every Monday afternoon. I met with the management team to go over any customer complaints that had come in that you know, we needed to have some corrections for. So at a minimum, I like to get a team together.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, for that question. For our next question for Paul, from Charlie, says, we are a retailer and I see you have a lot of capabilities around supplier audits, specifically cannabis and hemp. Do you have anything specific for retailers to use?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, actually. So yes, we do. When we built out our programs, we have multiple stakeholders in mind here. So currently, our cannabis and hemp standards, as mentioned earlier, they're now fully accredited under ANAB, and we offer it for 3 different areas. So our first one is for our retailers. Then we also have one for processors and manufacturers, and we also have for our growers and cultivators. So these programs are GMP based, but they're also very much state specific or province specific, excuse me, that was hard to say. And yeah, so it covers off all of the requirements that are imposed on you by the states as well as the country level. So yes, we do, and they're specific for those 3 groups.
All right, thank you, Charlie, for that question. Another question for Tammy, I think. What happens when a root cause cannot be determined even through using all the tools and investigations? This question's from Anna.
Yeah, so I was actually gonna type in a response, but unfortunately I've had experience with issues where, you know, no matter how we've dug into an issue, you know, fishbone diagram, 5Y, whatever tool we use to try to determine the root cause, and, you know, we either couldn't determine it, or we maybe thought we had it, and then we saw it reoccur at a later time. So, you know, I would just say, you know, keep at it, you know, and maybe try different tools if you can. And, you know, sometimes you just have to, you know, monitor a situation, collect data on it. Sometimes, unfortunately, those problems, you know, aren't a quick fix, and you may have to monitor the situation for a few weeks and try different things and see if you can recreate the problem. So yeah, so sometimes we don't get simple problems, unfortunately.
All right, thank you very much, Anna, for that question. Just looking, we got one more question from Dustin Daniels, manufacturer and PA. So, manufacturer and PA got the extension for our SQF audit. With so much uncertainty, what should be our next steps?
Who is that one addressed to, Stone?
It's not.
Yeah, I don't think it's addressed to anybody, but it just mentioned. Yeah, I'll repeat the question. It says, I believe they're identifying themselves as a manufacturer and PA. Got the extension from our SQF edit in parentheses originally unannounced April to June. And then, in parentheses, with so much uncertainty, what should our next steps be? So, Paul,
you want to take that one, Paul, or you want me to try a shot at it?
I guess it would be if you're currently certified, or if we're currently the certification body who's conducting that audit, then we can certainly speak to you. I guess if I'm understanding it correctly, they've gone through, they've got the approval for the extension. The audit is planned for July, and given the uncertainty, should they continue to move forward with it, or can they actually further extend, Tammy, outside of the 6 months at this point?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. GFSI has given us the maximum of 6 months allowed for an extension. So it looks like he said they were originally April to June. So May would have been their recertification date. So they would have actually gotten an extension until November, which
Right.
would then put their audit window out through pretty much the end of the year. And you know, there is uncertainty, and we're not sure where we're going to be a few months from now, but we'll keep up with what GFSI guidelines are, and we will modify our policy as well on that. But I would definitely encourage you to get with your CB, if that's Perry Johnson, and you know, just keep them apprised of the situation in your particular area to see if there's an opportunity to get an audit completed. But that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to you personally, so feel free to give me a call. We can talk a little bit more in detail about that. But like I said earlier in the presentation, you know, this is a time of great change, and even though GFSI has extended 6 months, they need to be thinking, quite honestly, about what's going to happen after these 6 months is over. How is this going to affect our clients? Because if somebody had started this extension process in February or early March, we're already 4 months in, and that only leaves a few months before that extension is no longer relevant. So I know GFSI had put out they had a question period where they had gone to market and asked for input on the schemes. I know that they're still extending that and working that out. But at the end of the day, they need to be ready for this should it happen. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to me directly.
All right, thank you, Dustin. We got one more question from Anna. I believe this is addressed towards Tammy. She said, as an auditor, what were some common findings / common best practices you found with root cause analysis?
Well, so I started out in the automotive industry and then moved into the food industry. And so I found that really it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you see some commonalities between findings and non-conformances. And so for me, as far as a best practice on root cause is just having that process and having it defined, and then following that, but also having the flexibility as that first question talked about. It's really, you know, it's discouraging sometimes to see how we become so fixed in our problem solving that we limit our ability to get to the root cause of things. So, and one thing that I dislike seeing, but unfortunately is a common theme sometimes, is operator error or lack of training or things like that. So for me, best practice is looking at not only what caused it, but also why it wasn't detected, and also what in the system allowed it to happen. And so I typically, when I'm doing root cause, I find the best practice is someone that has addressed all three of those things. So why did it occur? Why wasn't it detected? And what in the system allowed it to happen? And so for me, that's kind of a best practice.
All right, thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Anna, for that question. It looks like the questions have flowed up. Once again, thank you everyone for tuning in to the presentation. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Paul, for the wonderful presentation. If you have any more specific questions, feel free to contact any of the information that's present on the screen right now. And to address any of the questions regarding if this will be available, yes, this will be available online as well as on YouTube. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.